Okay, so what we're going to cover in this lesson is how to learn UX, as not every learning method is right for every person. UX certification and accreditation is also somewhat important for some people. So I'm going to talk about that as well and the different types of accreditation that is available. First of all, let's talk about how to learn UX. So a little bit about my sort of journey into UX. So many years ago, I did a master's research thesis on user behavior, and I sort of found out about this whole field of UX. So I started working, I was doing user requirements and focus groups and workshops and interviews before I even realized there was this field of UX. I then got really excited and passionate, and I returned to university and I studied human factors. I then read everything I could get my hands on, lots of articles, onto online forums, and just trying to sort of absorb as much as I could. I also attended lots of seminars and conferences. But you know what? Most of what I've learned in UX was on the job through trial and error over 20 years. So when people say, can I teach myself UX online and through reading? Well, yeah, I did. But you know what? Every time I read an article or a book or a social media post, I just find another piece of the puzzle. And then I had to sort of try and piece it all together. This person's saying this person's contradicting. And then I'd try it and see. So yeah, you can learn that way, but it's taken me 20 years to get to where I am now. Have you ever bought a book with all good intentions? I know I have. I bought lots of books, and a lot of them I haven't had a chance to read. Every time I go and sitting on the beach, I think, okay, I really should read that book on designing UX forms, or I could read the latest novel by Chris Kudneski. Guess what? The novel always wins. Even if you are really self-motivated, you go, well, that's not me, I'm really motivated. We feel self-motivated to learn, reading, watching videos, things like that. They're what we call passive learning methods. So when we read stuff, we only retain about 10% of what we read. When we hear stuff, it's about 20%. When we see stuff, it can be up to 30%. Maybe if you're watching videos, it can be up to 50%. So that's what we call passive learning methods. But to get that true learning, you need to start to apply, do simulations, and apply the knowledge that you've learned. So that's what we call active learning. Active learning involves applying what you've learned to a project and actually getting feedback. And in a UX job market, which is quite competitive for entry-level junior positions, most employers want to see that you've completed some kind of formal UX training. Find a UX course where you can get experience working on a UX project. A career in UX is really rewarding. I love what I do. Even after 20 years, I love that it uses the creative side of my brain, but also the analytical. I'm working with people, and I'm actually making a difference in the world. I'm working on things that improve people's lives. So you don't need to spend your valuable time posting questions in UX group, reading lots of UX books and articles, listening to podcasts, trying to sort of piece it all together. Yes, you can learn that way, but you're going to make a lot of mistakes and you won't necessarily know what mistakes you're making. So when you are choosing a UX course, these are some of the things to look out for. At the end of that course, are you going to get any kind of industry certification or accreditation? Have a look at the course. Are there any industry or student reviews? What are people saying about the course? Does it live up to the hype? How affordable is the course? Is it going to cost you an arm and a leg? Do you have to give up your full-time job? Think about the cost, but also the cost of lost wages if you have to do the course full-time over 3 or 6 months. Do you have to give up your current job and income? Or is it something that you can study sort of on the side? So these are all the sorts of questions that are good to ask any sort of training provider or any UX course that you're doing. Now I want to talk a little bit now about the different UX certification and accreditation available. First, I want to talk about whether or not you even need UX certification. The short answer is maybe. In any job market where there's growing demand, such as UX design, there's always going to be cowboys around. People who can talk the talk, and they go to a job interview, they get that job, but they can't walk the walk. And then the employers sort of realize that after the fact. So I actually interviewed several UX employers and asked them, is certification important to them when they're recruiting? The main response I got was that experience is generally more important. However, if 2 applicants had similar experience and one was certified and one was not, they said that they generally would probably prefer to choose the certified applicant. And the reason is certification just demonstrates to potential employers that you just have that strong foundational knowledge of that end-to-end process. So what UX certification is available? So I want to go through some of the different options. First of all, there's what I would call university or college certification or a degree. Courses typically are created or assessed by academics with extensive teaching and pedagogical experience. Typically, they involve some kind of formal assessment and exams to get a formal qualification. Second, there's what I would call vendor or course provider certification. For instance, congratulations, you're ABC Company certified. Often, some of these courses just give a certificate of completion, but no, there's no formal assessment, or if there is an assessment, it's done internally by the same people providing that course. So some people might argue that's not really as objective. Organisations such as Interaction Design Foundation, or IDF as they're called. What I like about this is it's a not-for-profit organisation, and they do issue certificates for their UX design courses, but they don't actually certify your level of experience through any kind of independent assessment. So you get more of a certificate of completion. Third is what I would call industry or global certification, and this is typically externally assessed to achieve that certification. So the two main UX certifications that are recognised internationally, first of all, there's one by the British Computer Society. They have what we call the Foundation Certificate in User Experience. So you can go onto their website and you can search for accredited training providers. And once you have learnt that syllabus, you can sit an external examination at one of their test centres all around the world. That's a 40-question multiple choice exam. And then you pass that exam, you then qualify to be accredited with that Foundation Certificate in User Experience. The other international globally recognised certification that is independently assessed is the User Experience Quality Certification Centre. The UX-QCC offers 3 levels of certification for UX practitioners, from that foundational level and 2 other sort of more advanced levels as well. So what are the advantages of genuine international UX certification? They typically involve significant consultation with highly experienced UX practitioners around the globe. And there's also that lack of perceived bias regarding the quality of the accreditation. Generally, it's better if the program you're doing is externally assessed. So how do you find accredited training providers? You can visit both the BCS or the UX-QCC websites, and you can search for accredited training providers. So hopefully this helps you work out the best way to learn UX and to help find an accredited training provider to help you get certified. Next, I'm going to talk about how you gain experience and create your portfolio.